All right, it is another edition of Don't Change the Channel, a ScanSource podcast. We have a huge episode for you today. It's going to be a long one, so buckle up. We're going to try to keep the front end of the show a little bit shorter because we have an awesome, and I use this word every episode, but it really is true this time, interview with Marcus Sheridan, the sales lion himself, came on the show. We talk selling in a virtual world. We talk about his story as the pool guy turned keynote speaker, TED Talk, New York Times darling. So really, really awesome interview with a guy who I feel like we got to talk to for 4 hours if it wasn't for us trying to keep this podcast a little bit shorter. But yeah, first and foremost, how are you guys?
I'm good. I'm a little tired.
Yeah, late night,
and yeah, it was
watching the election. There was funny. A point where I told Gabby, I realized that they kept saying, the people on TV were telling me to go to bed and telling us to go to bed. They're like, you won't find out anything more at this point. And I was like, I wonder if I will.
I know. I should have turned off at 11. Yeah. And instead at 1:30, I decided nothing is going to happen.
There was a point where it's like, let's jump back to this state, and it's like 15 more votes were counted. Let's look what that means. And I'm like, we're not even moving percentage points anymore. I gotta go to bed.
And one of them, they were like, they clicked on the same state. Like they clicked on Georgia like 5 times, and for 5 times in a row, they were like, and by the way, Georgia stopped counting votes at 10 o'clock. Yeah. And I'm like, why am I still watching this? What is happening?
So while we're on the subject of toxic things. Really cool article on The Atlantic that came out a few weeks ago, honestly. I know we haven't kind of talked in a while. It was called America's Toxic Love Affair with Technology. And the premise was that major inventions cause major upheaval. Sorry, we can edit that out, please, Gabby. Why don't we take precautions? And I thought it was interesting because it's something that, Philip, we've talked about before off the show. But we go check out our other podcast, Break It Down. We talk about artificial intelligence there. And our VP of Tech Services, Kyle, and us talk about the idea that artificial intelligence is not inherently good or bad, and technology is not inherently good or bad. The way we use it is what dictates that perspective of technology. And I think it's interesting because all technology is created, I'm going to take an optimistic viewpoint here, with the idea of a benefit to society in mind. But there are obviously examples currently that are more malevolent.
Yeah. It's like what's the old saying that the pen's more powerful than the sword?
Yeah.
There's it's that the damage you could do with a laptop, or the damage you could do with a drone, or some of these things, and artificial intelligence, robots, and obviously this is getting very sci-fi, but
there's
so much
Minority
more,
Report.
Right. There's so much more danger in those things being used, but they have to be used. Like there has to be a bad character or bad intent, and there doesn't have to be bad intent. Somebody can misuse something, but there is a character behind them that does this. Like, so like the idea of like Terminator, that may be a little extreme, but the idea of people utilizing, if there was somebody who wanted to do that and there was a person who did it, it could drive something really bad to happen. And in the case of Minority Report, they were trying to use it for good, but the way it was being used for good, it's I don't know. This is one that, yes, we need people go watch our other podcast, because this is one that there's a lot of ways to talk through this, but it's scary. I'll be honest. If my parents, they sometimes listen to this podcast, you let me watch Terminator 2 way too young. It scared the bleep out of me. Okay. And I mean, that's an extreme version of it, but Yeah.
Yeah, and I do think the premise is interesting. Like, why don't we take precautions? And again, I'm going to continue to take an optimistic stance on this. I think we are starting to as a industry. I think the newfound or recent prevalence of cybersecurity being implemented and integrated into everything is kind of a good first step. But I think it's tough because, again, I'm going to use Minority Report as an example. It's tough to, if you're not a bad actor, to put yourself in the shoes of one, because I don't think, one, to your point, Phil, like sometimes it's a mishap that leads to that. Like, and two, if you're not if you're your moral compass is good, it's tough to think outside of that realm to like, how could this be used for evil?
I have to ask, what happened in Minority Report? I've not
Oh man. So this is the homework for you, Abby. You're gonna go watch Minority Report. It's a phenomenal movie. The premise is that they're in a utopian society that has developed facial recognition technology, and they have these things called precogs to where they can essentially foresee the future of crimes that are being committed before they happen. So essentially they can predict like a murder, and they can go arrest the guy before the murder is committed for like, oh, you were going to commit murder.
Interesting.
Right. Now, so what's really the twist on the movie is this, though.
You don't spoil it.
I'm not going to spoil it.
No spoilers.
But the point is, let's say this saves hundreds of millions of lives because you stop crimes from happening, right? Well, but if someone found out that they were going to get arrested for a crime that they were going to commit in the future and they didn't commit the crime, then all of a sudden it's not valid. All of a sudden it's not accurate. So do you go commit that crime just to save the hundreds of thousands of lives that would be, and you just have to watch it. Gabby, we're gonna test you on Monday. This is your goal for tonight or this weekend.
Okay, I'll work on that. Put that on the list.
Yeah, and I actually just Googled the dark side of technology, and one that, I mean, think of the damage that people can do with drones. I mean, I've seen that there's a lot of like sporting events now. There's a lot of security that goes outside of just directly up against the stadium because they are watching things for stuff like that. But you're talking about something the size of a laptop that someone can fly anywhere they want. I mean, that's crazy.
Yep. And again, I mean, it was a business to consider, a consumer grade product that now has military application, technology implications, and really has like revolutionized, I would say, the like photography industry and like what can be shot and could be shot in different angles and everything. So it is an interesting case study and kind of lens into what we're talking about.
Yeah.
But yeah. All right. Well, with that, like I said, we do have an awesome, very long, very interesting interview with Marcus Sheridan. Marcus was kind enough to join us and kind of humor us, if you will, on me probing into what makes him tick, if he is a Marvel superhero or not. But before we get to that, the interview is brought to you by Cisco Services. So we talk about this utopian society. In that society, all of the products would be covered by services which protect the shelf life of your technology investments by scaling operations with ease and precision. Your business will benefit from Cisco Services through less downtime, reduced costs, and increased revenue. Offerings such as advisory, training, implementation, optimization, technical and managed areas, Cisco has solutions that fit every business. With constant shifts in the technology industry, it can be hard to keep up. The ScanSource team can provide you with Cisco service recommendations that make sense for both you and your customers. So call us today to learn more. And with that, here's Marcus. We are here today with the marketing guru himself, the founder of They Ask, You Answer, Marcus Sheridan. Marcus, how are you today, buddy?
It's a great day because the world is in flux, and the negative fluxy stuff isn't good.
No.
But there's lots of stuff to talk about, right? Marketers need help right now. Salespeople need a ton of help right now. Video is a major conversation right now, which is why I'm glad we're having this conversation today, because we could probably record for 3 hours and just get started. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, I'm ready for this.
Yeah, we're here on video, which is always good to see you. It adds a little bit of normalcy to all of this. So I do want to get to the ask you answer, because obviously you're a founding principal, something I feel like disciple might be a strong word, but I don't know.
I think it's a dang good word.
All right, that's
because
fair.
there's a whole lot of them now, and that's
good.
what's so cool. And not like I'm looking to be to have followers, because I'm not the star of it, right? What's the star is the idea. Because I think there's people in this world that say, yes, I want to be a great teacher. Yes, I want to be a great communicator. Yes, I want to be a great listener. Yes, I want to do business more transparently and honestly than anybody in my space has ever done. Yes, if I was a buyer, I wish they were answering my questions through text and video. They were showing it to me like it teaches, of course, and they ask you answer. So I didn't even allow you to ask the question yet, Ian. So I should apologize.
No.
But I think what you're saying is great, because there's a reason it's become a movement. I mean, the book now has become a really big, it's just great. We're 3.5 years since it was first published. It's been revised, but yet it's selling more today than it did 3 years ago.
Which is crazy, but it well-deserved.
Thank you.
So let's back up though, because I've met you a couple of times. I've worked with you a couple of times. I've seen you speak more than a couple of times. And there's one thing I never knew about you, Marcus, until I looked you up on LinkedIn. And it's that you didn't go to school for marketing. And I actually saw you talking about this on LinkedIn the other day. And what you did go to school for is something I would never have guessed in a million years. So you graduated WVU with a bachelor's degree in foreign language, correct?
Yeah. Spanish.
A
minor in PE.
Wow.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Because I mean, that's what everybody does when they want to become
everyone
as
a
marketing
guy.
Right?
I love West Virginia. I love Morgantown. One of the funnest weekends I've ever had in college. But let's start there, because as a marketer, not that I am daily like, oh yeah, I learned this in my marketing 305 class, my junior year of school. But you tangibly made a leap and a decision in your life to go from that path to the path that you are on and have kind of curated for yourself today. So walk me through what happened that took you from a foreign language degree to being the founder of kind of modern marketing's one of the founding principles in my mind.
Yeah, so it's like everybody's, right? It's an interesting journey, and I'll try to be as brief as possible with it. So I went to college thinking I wanted to be a high school football coach, maybe college or pro coach. And so I said, I'm going to be a PE major. And so that's what I was. And about halfway through college, I decided to go on a mission for my church, and I went to Chile. And so I went to Chile, which is a country in South America, for 2 years, and I learned to speak Spanish. And I got back, and I thought, you know what? I am so ready just to get a job. I don't know if I want to be a teacher, and I don't know if I'm going to be able to make it on that salary and try to support my wife and kids. Because I was already married, and my wife was like, I'd love to just, be able to stay home. And I'm like, I don't know if I can do that on a teacher salary. So I'm like, I'm going to go get a job. Let's get out of WVU, right? Even though I love Morgantown. Let's get out of here. So I said, how can I get out of here? I'm like, well, phew, I speak better Spanish than every one of these professors that I know right now. And so I took a test. I essentially just clept out of a ton of, classes. And then I graduated very, very quickly with this degree in Spanish. I got a job in Northern Virginia near DC. Thought the job stunk. So I went back home to where I grew up in Virginia thinking, all right, I need to find a job. And my two friends had just started a swimming pool company and said, yo, Marcus, we just opened up the swimming pool company. Would you be willing to work in the store while we are out installing swimming pools? And I said, yeah, sure, until I find my next job, right? And so I get in there and they're selling hot tubs and I'm just the only person in the showroom. I'm like, all right, it's cool. And somebody walks in right one of my first days. somebody walks into the showroom and they've owned a hot tub before. And they start asking me questions. And immediately I could tell that they could tell that I knew nothing. And this person was almost like psychologically abusive to me, just like pummeling me in this conversation, basically saying, you're an idiot. Why'd I even come in here right now? Because I know way more about hot tubs than you. So he left. I'm embarrassed. I'm angry. And I say, oh, no, you don't. And so that's when I said, I'm going to learn a ton about hot tubs. And I learned everything about hot tubs. And my business partners would come into the store. They weren't my business partners at the time. I was just an employee. And I'd say, ask me any question about any hot tub brand in the world. Where is it from? What's its warranties? What's its features? Right? And then quickly they said, oh my goodness, Marcus knows more about hot tubs than we do. And of course I just started to start selling because I just knew a ton. And this happened in short order. And so it wasn't long, 6 months in, they said, would you be a partner with our company? I'm like, I don't know if I want that stress. I'm like, no, we want you to be a third partner. I became a partner, and that was in 2001. In 2008, the market crashes, and we think we're going to lose the business. And that's when I started to lean into the internet. And I said, if we're going to save this dang business, I need to just get my head around this whole internet thing. And I started reading all these fancy phrases like inbound marketing, content marketing, social blogging, all that stuff. And what I heard in my simple pool guy mind was, you know what, Marcus, if you just obsess over your customers' questions and you're willing to address them on your website, you just might save your business. And so I said, well, shoot, that's what I can do that. I've gotten all these questions over the years. So I went literally at my kitchen table one night. I brainstormed all the questions I'd heard people ask about fiberglass pools over the years. And then one by one, I started answering those questions on our website through text and video. And make a long story short, it becomes the most trafficked swimming pool website in the world. I started to write about what I was doing there on a separate blog. At the time, I called it the Sales Lion. I know, cheesy name. And then that started to get some traction. And people started saying to me, hey, could you show us how to do that? Our company had to do that they ask you answer thing that you did. And then I started having conferences ask me to do this. And I had a propensity towards speaking for whatever reason. And so I started speaking. My speaking career took off. I decided to start an agency. So I kept the swimming pool company. And what's really interesting, bringing all full circle, the swimming pool company got so big, we became the largest builder of fiberglass pools in the U.S. Then we became a manufacturer of fiberglass pools in the U.S. And then literally like 2 weeks ago, the manufacturing company was acquired by another really large manufacturing company. And of course, in their mind, the website was worth millions of dollars, all because of this simple philosophy: they ask, you answer. That's been the journey. It's been really, really amazing. I can't even believe it.
Yeah, congratulations. I mean, that's awesome. I did want to jump back because before we get to the ask your answer, I feel like I'm gonna keep teasing the lead here and pushing back on it. But to how you have a good podcast. So I'm always so interested in what makes people tick. And I think yours, I mean, you have two humongous examples of almost obsessively like learning everything about something, in that like you determined, I want to be done with school and I want to go working, and how can I quickly get to that end goal? And then the same thing with kind of learning everything. Now, is that a taught skill? Like, is that something that Philip and I can go learn on our own? Or do you think that's like an inherent trait that you have? What goes into that?
I think I do have a couple of inherent traits. And while we talk, and I'm glad you asked this, because this is one of my, I don't know if it's called a pet peeve, but I think society looks down on people openly admitting they have gifts.
I'm the other side. I think gifts are the most enamoring. I also love the Marvel movies, but I think gifts are the coolest thing in the world.
Right. But just like, almost like if somebody says, my genius is this thing, that people might say, oh, you really shouldn't say that because that could be viewed as arrogance. And so what that does, it oftentimes will subdue one's talents or what they're able to give to the world. And so early on, I realized a couple of things. And specifically when I was a missionary in Chile, I had really astonishing success, much more so than most missionaries were having. And so it was one of those things I just kind of looked at and I said, what am I doing different? Because people started asking me, how are you doing this? It forces you to start to think about it. And I realized one main thing, that I explain complex subjects in a way that anybody can understand them. That was my big gift. So that people would say, huh, yeah, that makes sense. And so that's where it started for me, not overcomplicating the thing. And so when I look at decisions to make, I don't overcomplicate those either. Don't make them out bigger than what they are. When I teach something, I obsess over everybody in the room being able to say, I got it. I see the light bulb coming on. Because for them, it's obvious. So obvious that they're literally saying, this is obvious. Why did we not think of this? Right? And I think sometimes when we communicate, we want to sound intelligent. And that to me is the antithesis of really, really clean communication. Because if somebody listens to you and says, oh my gosh, what a genius he is. Well, they might think you're smart. But here's what they're not saying. Oh my gosh, why are we not doing this? This is so obvious. That's when you've done something really special.
Yeah. I mean, that's how you took my 4 years of a marketing degree and boiled it down into a simple phrase that I was like, yep, this is the most genius thing I've ever heard in my life.
I got to say something about that. And I know you have a question, Phil, but I think, and Ian, don't let this offend you, sir, please.
No, it won't.
I am so grateful I didn't study marketing in college. I think where they have failed, universities have failed, is they've overcomplicated the psychology of marketing, and they haven't done necessarily, and there's exceptions to this, of course, but they haven't necessarily done a great job at helping the students understand the principles so that whatever happens next, they're ready for it. So if you know the principles of great communication, well, then you're going to be good when Facebook falls by the wayside and some other thing comes, right? You're going to be good when, there's some next evolution of video because you understand and you latch around principles.
Yeah.
Ian, again, we need to do a podcast strictly. I know we could talk about marketing for 3 hours, but I'm learning more that's probably going to help me right now than we will when we get to the questions. So, no, I mean, I really, what you said about, it's hard to not come off as arrogant, but, everyone's blessed with things that make them unique. And make those things, take those things. They're what make you special and run with them forever. But
yeah, if
Ian also
weren't a thing, we'd have 100 Tom Brady's.
That's right. But I also love the fact that, Marcus, Ian's basically saying you're one of the Avengers, just so you know. He definitely alluded to that.
Right. Well, and when I wear spandex, I look in the mirror, I say, you should be an Avenger, right? Because you wear it well. Hasn't happened yet, though. We'll see. Time will tell.
So we've touched on they ask, you answer. We've kind of worked it into things, but so let's get to how is that affecting marketing today? What for the audience, give them the big bang.
So if somebody says, what exactly is they ask, you answer? Well, it starts with obsession with the way buyers think, the questions they ask, the fears that they have. And if you really are obsessed with that, it's amazing what you learn about them. And it dictates things like content strategy. If they're asking the questions, if they're thinking it, it means they're searching it. And so if you know what they're searching, you know what you should be addressing on your website. That helps with things like SEO, with user experience, et cetera, et cetera. But it doesn't stop with just the questions and the searches, the fears, the worries, the concerns that they have. It's also, how do they want to learn? How do they want to buy? This is a part of the ask you answer that not everybody fully gets. And so what I mean by that is, there's a stat that recently came out by Gartner, and it's like a gobsmacker. It's as significant as the whole stat of and you've heard me talk about this a million times, Ian, 70% of the buying decision is made before someone actually talks to a salesperson. Right?
Higher now too.
Yeah, now it's 80%.
Yeah.
Right? Now it's 80% on average. Well, so the stat that just came out by Gartner is, and everybody listen to this. Today, we know that the 33% of people, buyers, would prefer to have a seller-free sales experience. I will repeat. 33% of buyers would prefer to have a seller-free sales experience. 44% of millennials would prefer to have a seller-free sales experience. We don't want to talk to people. What do we want? We want the company, the brand, the thing to facilitate it so that we have all the information we need at our fingertips and we can make the decision without having to do it on somebody else's terms. We want to do it on our terms. They ask you answer means that we don't push away stats like that we say, my goodness, this is real. And if this is the case, what can we do to enable somebody to make buying decisions without actually talking to a sales person?
So you touched on just the obsession with the customer, right?
Yeah.
So Ian, I gotta ask, is that something taught in marketing, or is that something that Marcus has learned through his experience not going to, not having that marketing?
Not being jaded by the universities of the world.
No, I mean, I think it's honestly, Marcus, you not only did you not offend me, you made me envious in a way that, like, I think I would have a much different perspective on things if I had a different degree. I'm thankful for the degrry I have in the teaching.
Yeah, sure. No, absolutely. I'm sure it's worth it.
Yeah, it's I don't know if it was. I think it's, no, I don't think the customer is made out to the degree that Marcus has made it to be where it should be. In that, I mean, you hear obviously the hero's journey and all of those teachings, but I feel like everything, where I'm really reaching back here. It's been 12 years since I've been out of school here. I think it's more about like the process and the idea and like the principles that you're everything between the creation of the product and getting it to market, more than like being customer obsessed and focusing on what their needs and necessities are to drive the marketing journey.
But one more thing about that, Phil, to this question, and I know, at the risk of a diatribe, which I won't do, of all the subjects that are currently taught in university, marketing might be one of the hardest to teach well, because as soon as you start to teach it, it's probably outdated. In other words, as soon as you develop a curriculum and a lesson plan, etc. And so the idea that you could do classroom for, let's say, 4 years and really truly be prepared. If universities were on their game when it came to marketing, I would say that what has to happen is 50% of the time should be spent where they are in the field doing the actual work. Otherwise, they won't be ready for it. I think it's one thing that we do wrong here in the US. I mean, if you go to a lot of countries in Europe, let's say like Denmark, it's like they are all, as part of their university experience, it's like internships. They don't say it quite like that, but it's what everybody does there. It's part of university. They spend 1 to 2 years doing that thing. Nobody gets their degree and then says, oh, gee, I don't like this job. They know because they did said job, right? And they've had to be thrown into it in that moment. And what they're talking about oftentimes in class is the thing that they're doing in their job, right? And that's where we have to get with these technology-based, digital-based subject matters that we teach in universities. To think we can do it just in the classroom setting today is extremely naive.
Yeah, it's actually funny. This whole, I mean, we're really peeling back some memories here. This whole conversation just got me thinking. one of my textbooks, I want to say sophomore year, was like in the textbook was like an analysis of Nike's campaign around Tiger Woods. Do you want to know what made Nike's campaign around Tiger Woods actually successful? Tiger Woods.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
They
they gave him a lot of money, and he was Tiger Woods.
Well, and it was like, and you have back to gifts. You have a generational talent who breaks every stereotype of that's ever stood in that industry, and he is, revolutionized golf and introduced an entire new wave of an audience of younger generations and demographics that never cared about golf. That's what succeeded. Not like, well, Nike used targeted ad, like whatever it was. You know what I mean? Like it's like, yeah, exactly that stuff succeeded, but it succeeded because of what they were focused on. Like, so it's so funny because it's almost rewriting history in a way in marketing textbooks that you're now analyzing a campaign that was successful, but not acknowledging what made it truly successful.
Well, something you just said struck something in me, Ian, too, because it's like, I remember that, I've been around content marketing now, right, in that world for so long. And everybody used to love to talk about, look at the cool content marketing that Coca-Cola is doing. And look at the cool content marketing that Red Bull is doing. And what happens is 99% of businesses are like, what the hell does that have to do with me? Because it's just like, I cannot relate. Because what these companies can do is they can just throw money in the wind and nobody cares, right? Because they don't have to be fiscally responsible marketers, right? You don't have to win on your campaigns because you just got this huge war chest of monopoly money that you're playing with. 99.9% of marketers, they are under-resourced, underfunded, underappreciated, and oftentimes, and don't take offense to this world, they're the redheaded stepchild of that organization, at least their department is, right? This is why the number one email that I've received over the course of 10 years of talking and writing about this is not from business owners saying, hey, Marcus, I'm in trouble. I need more traffic, leads, and sales. That's number two. Number one is from marketers saying, I'm so frustrated because I know this would work, but I can't get sales to get aligned with me, and leadership's not on board, and I'm at the point where I think I might need to leave the company, Marcus. What do you think? That's what I've been seeing and hearing now for 10 solid years.
I mean, you're Billy Beane. That's who you like. I mean, what you just said is, the Red Bulls and Coca-Colas of the world are the Yankees, and you figured out Moneyball in that they ask you answer is essentially a Moneyball principle that regardless of budget, you can go do today and have success with.
I like that analogy. I've never heard it before, and I really like that movie.
Yeah.
I'm not as handsome as Brad Pitt. I'll take it though. Ian. Thank you.
Yeah. No, it's interesting because if I walked into the CMO's office tomorrow and was like, hey, I have this great marketing idea. We're going to do this event where people try to just make things fly, but they're not actually going to fly and they're going to fall in the water and we're just stick our logo on it and it's going to work. I would get laughed out of the room. But yet that's like the most widely regarded thing that people know that Red Bull does from a marketing perspective.
That's right. We cannot relate, right? Which is why, once again, going back to explaining things in a way that anybody could understand them. I'm not interested in sharing the Zappos story. I'm not interested in sharing the Coca-Cola content story because 99% aren't going to say, oh yeah, we can do that.
Well, and it's astonishing. This touches a perfect nerve for probably 95% of our audience. We obviously have a set of partners out there that are larger, we have a lot of 2, 5, 10-man shops trying to go to market. And me and Ian, and Ian's got a couple people on his team that have to kind of sit and have conversations with these partners, understanding that limited resources, limited people, how do you make an impact? And so
I think too, Phil, though, when they do that, they can never forget when somebody says, yeah, but Marcus, I'm small. I'm like, oh, this is great. You mean you don't have all that red tape that these other companies have? I'm telling you what, you want to get a video produced with some of these large organizations, it's literally like writing the Declaration of Independence. And, by the time it was said and done, Jefferson was utterly depressed because it was a different document. Now, we all know it as the Declaration of Independence, but he was just like, literally depressed and it's like, why did I even take the time to write this thing? And so you see that in most organizations that are bigger. When you don't have red tape, see, do you think if I had some stinking lawyer telling me when I was writing about the competition at river pools and spas, right? Like I was doing stuff that had never been done before. I didn't know it was cool. I just knew it was working, right? Let me give you an example of this, Phil, because this is a trip. It's one of the funniest stories. I don't share this even much from stage. I don't know if you've heard this one, Ian, but it was probably around like 2011. I was like, you know what? Like I look around, I see all these like industry magazines and like the car magazines and stuff, and they've got like best in class. And I've not seen a best in class for fiberglass swimming pools. So here's what I'm going to do. And at the time, we weren't manufacturing fiberglass pools. We were like a little Chevrolet dealer carrying Chevrolets to give everybody an idea of what we were. And so I said, I'm going to write a big piece, and I'm going to give fiberglass pool design awards to the manufacturers for 2012. I think that's what the year was. And so I created these awards: best kidney shaped pool, best rectangular pool, right? Best diving pool. And what was hilarious about this is suddenly these manufacturers had never paid me any attention. Now I was getting different types of responses from them because it was getting read. Like this stuff was getting read by a lot of people. And some of them were saying, how come we weren't on your list? Some of them were saying, hey, Marcus, I noticed that I wasn't on your best of list. How about we fly you out to our factory so that you can tour our location and see these things, right? So like quickly, I'm this kid, and see, others said this, what is this snot-nosed kid doing, talking about, what gives him the right? I'm like, what gives me the right? It's called the internet and the fact that I did it. That's what gives me the right. And so I produced this, and here's where it gets really, really funny. Suddenly I noticed, and by the way, I gave out awards to companies like manufacturers I was selling against. So again, pretend I was a Chevrolet dealer. I was giving out an award to Ford and to Dodge and to, like these different brands. I was giving out awards. And, and what happened next kills me. You saw these companies literally announcing on their homepage that they had won an award for best in class, and they were linking to me, my article, and my website.
That's the best inbound marketing strategy you can have.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Isn't that great?
It's good that people didn't try to buy you off in any way, shape, or form either for the fall. Let's fly him out here.
No, but if I had had a lawyer, the lawyer would have been like, you can't do this. You can't do this. Like, get over yourself. And that's the beauty of being a digital David in a land of Goliaths. And back to your partners, they need to think like a digital David. They can make their own rules, right? They don't have to use a sword in 200 pounds of armor. They can use a sling, and they can be quick and nimble, and they can win the day. And this is something that we all have to remember as small businesses.
Yeah. I love this.
I like that.
Ian, we got to make sure Caroline listens to this. Is that she's going to literally preach that right there to about 200 partners in the coming weeks. So
go ahead.
I would kind of let's keep jumping here. Is so now just talking about virtual, trying to get through some of these. Is everything's gone virtual. What are your top tips from a marketing and sales perspective as business goes?
Man, I got some strong ones. In fact, I'm speaking at Cisco for this very subject in the very near future.
So next week?
Yeah, there's some majors that are going on. So one of them is this. Since I've been doing so much virtual sales training, we have found that, and we were actually discussing this a little bit before the call started, that just because somebody's good at sales traditionally doesn't mean that naturally carries over to their ability to sell over video. So if you just teach a sales team best practices over a video sales call, it can be a total game changer. And you're like, well, shouldn't those be obvious? They're not obvious. And so if you're listening to this now, let me just give you a couple examples that are like, duh, but most salespeople won't necessarily do it. So for example, everybody's had a call before where you did a video conference call, you had your camera on, but the other person did not. And of course, in that moment, how does it feel? It feels totally uncomfortable. It's weird. You're like, what is this person doing? Are they eating their lunch right now? Are they even paying attention? Are they just checking their email? It's really awkward.
It
We know
feels
that.
like when you're eating food and someone's watching you eat food.
That's exactly right. It's really bad. So we know that the studies have shown that closing rates are dramatically lower when both parties don't have their camera on. So how do you, as a salesperson, if you're setting up a video conference call with a prospect, how do you ensure that they turn their camera on every single time? Well, there's a way to do this. There's a certain script, if you will, that can become your own, but you need to know the foundational components of what the script would look like so that they can like easily say it, and then the person naturally says, yes, of course. And even if they say, I don't know if I want to, they come right back again and they get the yes every single time. And so now the camera's always on. You know, if I had $1 for every person that's told me over the last 8 months since I've been teaching so much of this, like, Marcus, I had somebody tell me today I was the first person they've ever met with over video. First vendor they've ever talked to. But think about that, right? Think about, like, if you're the first vendor somebody's ever talked to over video, how that relationship with you is so dramatically different than anybody else. Let me give you another like simple best practice. You're like, duh, but isn't practiced. And that is, let's say you're a salesperson and you meet with a company and there's 5 of them on the call and they're all around a board, the boardroom table. When you're leading that call, when it comes to video sales, awkward silence is more awkward. So silence when you're in a boardroom can actually be pretty powerful. But when you're on a video call, it's not so powerful. It's not nearly as effective. And so you don't want to have silence, you want great flow, which is why you don't ask open questions to the group when you're leading a call with multiple decision makers. So in other words, what you don't want to do is you don't want to say, so what do you all feel is the biggest struggle with your company right now? Because what does everybody do?
Look around.
They look around, and if somebody speaks up quickly, it's usually the alpha, the one that's in the lead, and everybody else falls by the wayside. Great salesperson knows how to engage everybody, and that's why you only ask questions using names every time. So you could say something like, so Phil, what do you feel like is the biggest issue that your company's facing right now? And Ian, what would you add to what Phil just said? And Jeff, how do you feel about that thing? And Gabby, is there anything else that you wanted to add to the conversation? By doing this, we've now got the involvement of everyone. Everyone feels like their voice is heard, and you start to get a much better perspective of the prospect. Yet, if you watch most salespeople on these calls with multiple decision makers, they don't do that. It's open questions to the group. Big flaw. Easy to fix. Easy to fix. So that's one thing. Another thing. Sticking with video for a second. By the way, I'm really hot on video right now. I've been hot on video for years. I've got a book coming out right now. It's on Amazon. It's called The Visual Sale. And if you're looking just to create a true culture of video, sales and marketing video in your company, make sure you get The Visual Sale. It's available on Amazon and Barnes & Noble right now. And so, you know, this is the type of stuff that I'm constantly thinking about. One of the easiest ways for anybody in the organization to start to catch the vision of video is to do one-to-one email video. And most of us have started to see these now, but still most salespeople aren't using them, which is pretty sad. And so whether it's Vidyard, whether it's Loom, whether it's Bonbon, whether it's Soapbox, you have all these different tools now that allow you to have one-to-one video conversations that you send over email, dramatically more personable. And we talk 3 times faster than we type on average, so that makes us much more efficient of communicators. They can hear you, they can see you, they can get the gesticulation, they can get the whole 9. And so this is a better communication, more personal, more human experience. We keep saying, you know, COVID has made us less human, less personal. Technology makes us less human, less personal. Well, there's things we can do. Look, people fall in freaking love all the time over the internet.
There's
You
like
can
100
certainly,
TV shows out there.
yes, you can certainly create amazing human relationships over video. And the thing that you got to remember with video and with video sales calls is the number one factor that dictates whether or not somebody buys from you. Most people don't realize this. The number one factor is this: the first company that has a conversation with the prospect wins 70% of the time. the first person that has an actual conversation with that prospect wins the deal 70% of the time. So back in the day, you get a big lead, you might say, all right, let me look at my schedule. Yeah, I can see you next week sometime. Next Tuesday, I can be out there. What are we doing? Let's jump on a call and you see me and I see you right now. That's called timing. And timing has never been more relative to sales and marketing than it is today. Every single one of us is more impatient. We want our answers right now. And this is why this is such a big deal. These are just little simple, tips and tricks. And I could go on and on about this. Obviously, you can see, I could go on and on about it. But last thing I want to say about this, do not assume that your team is just going to be able to catapult forward with video and with much of this digital technology unless you take the time to train them on it. That's why I've spent so much time training sales teams how to have incredibly effective video sales calls. Because unless you train them, you're going to find there's a lot of frustration. Some are going to be depressed. There's many, many salespeople in the world right now very depressed. Nobody's talking about this. 71% of salespeople around the world are outside sales reps. 71%. All these people, guess what? For the most part, they're inside right now. And so they've had to learn, just completely relearn their job. It's been a big struggle. This is why morale is at an all-time low for many organizations and many salespeople. It's our job to help elevate everybody and lift them back up.
Yeah. So I have a question on virtual events, the other side, going to the marketing side. So we and every other company out there,
yep,
back in March, April, May, made a decision that, hey, we had all these events and they're all going to go virtual now. So now I feel like I have a webinar every day. I got a virtual roadshow, cooking class, whatever it is. So naturally, we're starting to see fatigue of virtual events. Is this something you're seeing?
Okay, so we're seeing fatigue. So when you say that, Ian, does it mean you're getting tired of it? Does it mean your customers are getting tired of it?
I think customers are getting tired of it.
So this is one of those things where
me too, but
yeah. So when we are the ones putting on the virtual events and we're not necessarily used to it, I think it's pretty easy to say that it's getting a bit taxing. What's actually happening is we miss human-to-human connection, but we're not like seeing somebody in real life. We miss that. Because we miss that, we say we're tired of virtual events because we miss human-to-human. I believe what's going to happen is we're going to go back to some like in real life human-to-human eventually. It's going to happen. It just will. Okay. When it does, is it going to go back to the way that it was with the event space before? I don't think it will. I think we're going to have virtual as a major component going forward. But I think this is where we are right now. And I don't think it does good for us to say people are just tired of it. What does good is to say, are we creating a great experience that they feel energized with when they're done? Because they made connections and they felt engaged with, even though it wasn't in real life. My agency has done, I guess, 5 pretty large, substantial virtual events in about 6 months. And we continue to have great momentum with them. And I say that because people are still very interested in getting their learn on and having unique experiences, meeting new people. This is the way they can do it right now. I think we'd be remiss if we just said, man, we're all just done with this, and then laid off for a while. I don't think that's a good play. I think we just need to continue to elevate the bar the best that we possibly can. It's one of those things too where, it used to always drive me the conversation of there's too much content online. That's like saying there's too much content on Google. When was the last time you went to Google and said, I am really bothered by the fact that there's 373 million results right now? Like,
I prefer less.
You've never said that, right? And why didn't we say that? Because the user experience was such that you found what you want, you found it quickly. Achieve the goals. keep going back, even though the content keeps adding and adding and adding. So it's really not about the amount of content that is there. It's how it is delivered to us that dictates the experience.
Yeah, I definitely think and I see it from the marketing side with Ian and somewhat from the sales side, that the issue is it's very, very difficult. It's like saturated just webinar, just someone speaking for an hour. Sign up for this 1 hour speaking. And it just seems to be.
Yeah. So here's what I would say we've got to get rid of to this point, Phil. If they could have watched the recording and felt like they didn't miss anything, then we missed the mark. That's the problem, which is why I have found that there is the best way to deliver an online event when it comes to production, when it comes to experience, having done so many now myself. I'm a strong believer in this. And that is, it's essentially a 30-30 model. 30 minutes pre-recorded live where the speaker is in the chat, engaging with the audience. It's pre-recorded, so it's got a nice production feel. It's not just your typical, looks like he's on Zoom or she's on Zoom. And then you go live after the pre-record that was felt live too, because again, the speaker was in chat, engaging with everybody as he or she was speaking. That's really cool. They're not used to that. Then you go live with Q&A, and again, your camera is on, and then you have live Q&A. That is outrageously effective.
I like that.
I've seen hundreds and hundreds of survey forms filled out just from our events at Impact, my company Impact Agency. And what I consistently have found is people will say, I felt closer to the speaker than I ever have at a live in-person event. That's really fascinating, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
The only reason why they're saying that is because we make it required that all speakers are engaging in chat if it's recorded.
I like that.
And then we try to do the immediate live follow-up. It's the best of all the worlds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm actually, yes. I've been thinking a lot about, can we all agree, event organizers, that we're going to stop acting like something's live when it's not live? It's like, it's okay that it's pre-recorded.
Mm-hmm.
It's okay. But let's not try to not, I've had events say, yeah, we're going to do this pre-record. I'm like, does the audience know, and can I engage in the chat? And they're like, well, or if you engage in the chat, then they're going to know it's not like happening right then. I'm like,
it's okay.
What is wrong with you right now? Can we please get past the BS? They know. And that's called being honest. So let's just tell them it's pre-recorded. Let's let them know that I'm going to be available engaging with them while it's happening. And that alone will be enough for them to say, I might miss something if I'm not there, right? Especially, that's why the chat during engagement and then the Q&A afterwards live, that makes somebody say, I feel like I missed something because I didn't get a chance to ask my question. I didn't get to follow everything that was happening in chat in that moment either.
I like that.
So
that's great advice.
We've talked a lot about marketing. So I want to shift real quick and just touch on sales. 2020 is coming to an end. Going into 2021, virtual selling, is the future 100% virtual selling? Is it going to be mixed? I mean, likely answer is it's going to be mixed, but what does it really look like?
Yeah. So I absolutely feel that there is going to be a huge portion of salespeople, because I've already seen it. I mean, I'm living it with some pretty big companies. I've trained already a couple thousand salespeople on this whole virtual sales thing. You know how many times, Phil, I've heard somebody already say to me, I'm not going back to the way that we were doing it before.
I get it.
It's astounding. And they say things like, the customer actually thanked me for not coming out and just taking care of it with them right then and there. And they start to see all the things they could do or show just by a quick video call. And they're like, son of a gun. You mean I could hop in a plane, go meet the client, and come back over the course of 48 hours, or I could have a 45-minute call with them right now and eat dinner with my wife and kids tonight. I think I'll choose the latter. Now, that is really fundamentally going to change a lot of things. Many people, and I don't want to say they're spoiled. No, they're just enlightened. That's the difference. They're enlightened that there is a better way. I do think there's always going to be the need to do some deals skin to skin. I do think that certain things are always going to be shown better when you're in person as well. I do think there's just one very large company that I'm working with right now that everybody's heard of. And they have this thing where traditionally, they have this center where people come to see their products demoed. And what I'm trying to help them do is a hybrid model where essentially they have this amazing studio where they have a person that's like the pitch man or woman that gets the live stream that does the demo, but they do the product demo with the audience dictating like the person would from stage. So if I was a magician on stage and I was saying to you, so anybody from the audience, have an object that they want to share with me right now, right? So that's how magicians magically get their audience very, very involved. And so I think we're going to have this incredible hybrid methodology where more organizations are going to have the ability to have one main, call it demo point, where you have this person that is great at doing a live demo through a live stream, and they learn how to create it as an experience, a show almost. The customer, the prospect, is participating from somewhere else, and they get this sense of engagement, choose your own adventure, interaction that they only would have been experienced previously had they been there holding it, feeling it, touching it, interacting with it. They'll be able to do that with this type of hybrid experience. That is the thing that's I'm working out right now, and I suspect I'll be talking a lot more about that as we go.
I like that. It's a good tease.
Yeah, I like it too. Never getting on a plane again, and the amount of money I'll save on Starbucks in an airport, pretty good with it.
Yep.
I like that all it took was a global pandemic for the phrase, "This is the way we've always done it," to die.
Well, it's amazing how much this global pandemic let the cat out of the bag with spending money on travel, spending money on office space. It's something you just can't get it back. Too many people know too much how this could be done and how much easier it can be done.
Yeah.
Good
all
stuff.
Right. Last question, Marcus. We ask every guest, what's the last app you used on your phone and why?
Oh, freak. You would think that I would be some great app guy, and definitively I'm not a strong app guy at all. So I would guess I'm going to just give the worst answer here because it's the one that nobody wants to hear. It's either going to be the ESPN Fantasy Football app. Okay. It's going to be potentially the Slack app because I do want to know what's going on there. Or it's probably going to be LinkedIn. LinkedIn is, I'm definitely using LinkedIn on my phone all the time because I live on LinkedIn. I like positive energy. I'm not on Facebook, which is why if you're listening to this right now, please connect with me on LinkedIn because that's my home. And I think Ian will test that. I share some good stuff there that I think you would enjoy if you're listening to this and you want to really just get business, sales, marketing, advice, thoughts, ruminations. That's where I put it, is on LinkedIn. So make sure
you're
you
not big on Twitter anymore. Twitter's it's a little bit of they're talking about a negative energy.
It's one of those things where I think 3 or 4 times a day, this would be a good Twitter post. I'm like, yeah, but do I want to do that?
You want to open Twitter?
Do I want to open that can? Because it's really quite sad. I mean, these days you could say something that it's like the clouds are so blue, and the sky is so blue, and somebody would say, you're just so, that's because you live in the part of the world that you can see blue skies. I can't see blue skies. I'm just like, what just happened just now? You know what I'm saying? And it's harder for people to put themselves out there because of that. And I think what's sad is there's going to be lots of amazing thinkers that are going to be stifled because they're afraid just to share what their thoughts are and what they feel to be true. And we need to get back to a place of dialogue and discourse. The place where I find that you can have that the most right now is LinkedIn.
I agree.
It's not perfect, but it's better than the rest from what I can tell.
We had a guest on the show recently, Richard Bliss, who is kind of like the LinkedIn guru as far as their algorithms and posting strategies and all of that. And it was very interesting because he shared some of the stuff that LinkedIn does to try and keep it that way and essentially foster collaborative, positive conversations or constructive conversations, and like block out or filter out the political postings and rantings of others.
That's such a great thing, and people will say, "Oh, you're a LinkedIn snob," to say that we shouldn't be posting political things on here. I'm like, no, we're just keeping a place of positive energy. You can be political, but there's so many other platforms for it. Why don't we have a platform where we focus more on what brings us together versus what divides us?
Yep, couldn't agree more. All right. Well, this has been fun. We are at the top of the hour.
Fun. We have to do it again sometime.
We definitely need to do it again sometime.
Yes,
I know we're talking about doing potentially a video workshop for you, but for anyone else out there, go check out the visual sale on Amazon. It's out now, I believe. Gabby just sent me a link to it. So I believe this will be a little bit of a weekend purchase for me as well. And Marcus, we appreciate it.
My pleasure, everybody. And if you have a personal question for me, just reach out. Marcus at marcussheridan.com. It's Marcus at marcussheridan.com.
Perfect. We appreciate it, sir.